Yo, 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 guys, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Game Six Clay podcast. Officially kicking off our fourth season of doing this. We had a nice off season. It's been a fun summer. Boys, we're going around, having a good time. We got me and Chuck on here today. Matt is helping out a friend move in, but me and Chuck, we decided, it's been time. It's been almost a month, six weeks, I want to say, since our last episode. Maybe a little longer than that. Warriors offseason moves. We've got Giants baseball. We got the Niners season kicking off. A lot of stuff to talk about. This is really our platform to do it. Well, at least my platform. I know Chuck's way bigger on the content. But good to see you, man. How we living, Chuck?
We're doing good, man. Yeah, fun off season, like just getting out here, enjoying all the beautiful mountains in Denver, getting back out with friends, enjoying all the nice weather. I mean, man, it's good times, been soaking in that Giants baseball as always. Sometimes it's torture, sometimes it's beautiful.
How we love
We'll
it.
definitely get
How
in
we love it.
we'll definitely get into more of it later, but yeah, man, things are doing good.
Hey man, that's awesome to hear. And last time we talked, last time we got the squad together, Chris Paul, newly a Warrior, Jordan Poole off to the Wizards. There was a lot of talk about who are we gonna sign, what's the team gonna look like. Um, Before Steph Curry just had again one of the coolest summers I think in human history. Capping off, they didn't win a championship this year, obviously, but damn near had a championship level offseason. I don't know if he compares to Jokic. His part ended up in Sombor with the horse races and everything, but we got the summer Steph, man. But Chuck, just real quick, just to kind of kick it off, man, give me your offseason thoughts on the Dubs. We got obviously a completely different team now. It's a lot more balanced, a lot more veteran heavy. Mike Dunleavy, first offseason as the official general manager, taking over for Bob Myers, obviously, who left to join ESPN. Funnily enough, hopefully we'll get some Pro Warriors talk now on all those shows. But yeah, man, just take me through your offseason thoughts. Just kind of picking up from that Chris Paul trade going forward from the last time we spoke. How have you liked how the offseason's kind of unfolded, the signings, young guys, summer league? Just kind of give me your thoughts, man. How have you been feeling?
Yeah, well, first, obviously, congrats to Bob on his new job. I'm sure Disney gave him a big old bag,
Kind of save that
because,
stock price, man.
oh man, yeah. Also very funny that he's gonna be like doing shows with Bobby Marks and Woj. Just Bob sitting there like 6'8", beautiful head of hair, sitting across from those two dudes who don't have two hairs to rub together between them. It's gotta be kind of tough for those guys.
It's tough, man.
Um,
Dude.
yeah, man, like Dunleavy stepping in, it was always kind of a guarantee that they were going to promote from within. That's always what they do. And he's just stepped right in and they haven't missed a beat. You could even argue that I think, some of the stuff with Bob and the youth movement has been very ownership driven, but Dunleavy came in, he said a hard line. He said, we're getting the vets in here. We are away with the players that we don't think we can depend on. And that's not a slight to Jordan Poole, but he just didn't bring the kind of consistency they were looking for. Uh, Addressing the big man room with Dario Saric, which I love. I think that was a great addition. And then getting Corey Joseph, some nice little depth. Like they really kind of lacked that third point guard for a bit. So I'm pretty excited about that as far as you can be for like a 12th, 13th roster. And yeah, man, like the draft too. Like I think they did a great job at balancing. Uh, you know, like Pods is a very talented guy. He's young. He's coming from Santa Clara, so the level of competition isn't like high as some people would like it to be. But he looked amazing in summer league. Like he's such an accomplished scorer. That dude rebounds so hard for a guard, and yeah, I think they made a great swing there. And then, man, the Trace Jackson Davis pickup was
Big one.
just
Big one.
like beautiful for a second round pick. Like the guy was one of, if not the most efficient players in college basketball last year. He's athletic, 4-year guy, does everything that you want in terms of like amazing roll guy. He can score in the post. He's a really great passer, especially out of the short roll, and that's something that the Warriors are going to value really highly. So yeah, man, I think they hit it out of the park this offseason.
1,000%. And I brought up the summer Steph to kind of jokingly, but like Steph's been doing. Obviously, had the underrated media tour or the documentary, which if you haven't seen, if whoever's listening, if you guys haven't seen it, great piece of content. Really gets kind of a cool inside look to who Steph Curry is. But Steph's been doing a lot of press this offseason. I think just through the content he's been releasing and just the interviews that he's been given. And for me, this offseason really screamed like, obviously, like the whole 2 timeline thing was something that we've talked about, fans have talked about, like Twitter has had endless debates about who's right, who's wrong, but this offseason kind of cemented what the 1 timeline. And it really is kind of, for me at least in my head, is ushering in this final iteration of what this Warriors dynasty is going to look like to close out the Steph, Clay, Draymond era. And you go out and get a Chris Paul where, like you said, Jordan Poole, like I think we were some of the biggest proponents of Jordan, but not no slight to Matt. Matt was definitely on the dump Jordan Poole squad earlier than most. But you and I, like we had love for JP. I think the player that he was developing into, the guy that he was in that 22 championship run. And we saw bits and pieces of it this offseason or this last season as well. That growth that he had taken, but like you said, he wasn't the guy to help bring this team another championship in the next year or 2 years. Not saying that he hasn't been that guy, but as that role kind of steps up, Jordan Poole and obviously the punch with Draymond and the whole offseason saga, there was a lot of kind of just noise surrounding Poole, the Warriors, that whole thing. So I think to move off of Jordan, be able to get a guy like Chris Paul who we'll be the first one to tell you, man, like I never liked Chris Paul. Chuck, I know you never liked Chris Paul. Like to get a dude that we've battled with on the Clippers, the Rockets, laughed at him when he was on the Thunder. The Suns didn't even get a shot because they didn't make it. This guy's been somebody that as a Warriors fan, you've grown to hate from a sports sense for so many years. So to go out and make a swing like that you're here to you got depth at the point guard position, and I think that was something, especially in that Lakers series and the Kings one last year. We saw that Jordan really got played off the court from a defensive standpoint, and the offense they really tried to tailor it to be Steph Curry 2.0, and that's putting a lot on a 23-year-old kid that's still figuring out his own game. And what Chris Paul brings to the table in terms of slowing it down the game, you're able to run more pick and roll sets, play a little slower in the half court. It's going to unlock guys like Kuminga. I think Clay is going to be eaten with Chris Paul, kind of dishing him out. And Dario Saric, like you mentioned, man, like a big man, kind of a Bielitsa type, where he can shoot, he can pass, great IQ. So the moves the Warriors made this offseason just and kind of piggybacking off what Steph has said, like we've got 1 or 2 more left in us, and I think that for Dunleavy to come in and have that impact that he had and making those tough decisions, it was tough to see. We'll talk about it with the Niners and the Giants as well. There's a lot of youth movements going on in the Bay Area, and you get attached to these guys, the Pools, the Kumingas, the Trey Lances, the Kyle Harris, whoever it is that you want to say. Like there's these young guys that you want to see succeed, but at the end of the day, those are the tough decisions you have to make as a front office when you're in a win now period like the Warriors are. And for them to go in and say, hey, like this is the squad we're rolling with. Obviously Steph Curry's playing at an all-time level still. Doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon. Clay's had his first fully healthy offseason since the injury or since pre-ACL. Draymond looks like he's been in the lab. I think we've been seeing the team having a lot more workouts just with themselves, and it seems like they're all very, very bought in and really hungry to get back to the mountaintop. So it's for me, man, like this offseason screams like this season's going to be special. Stay healthy, but they've got the pieces now to really get back and contend with the Denver, with Los Angeles, Celtics, the Heat, whoever's coming out. I think the Warriors are in that mix of those top 5-6 teams where give him a shot in the postseason, man. And you have enough around you this go around to have a successful trip in the playoffs, which we didn't see last season, and it was really the first time we've really seen that in this era.
Yeah, 100%. I think, diving into some more of the stats on why I think this was a really good offseason. There are still some negatives with Chris Paul. Like he's getting up there in his age, and a lot of parts of his game have diminished. The guy is just going to be getting a whole lot of layups. I'll tell you that much. Not only is he not getting there, he was really struggling to finish. Only 46% at the rim, which is really rough considering what we know from him in his career. But the guy is still a killer in the mid range. He's still hitting threes. He's still grifting those free throws as always.
Can't wait to see it on our side this time.
Oh yeah, it's going to be much better when he's playing for us instead of against us. Another thing too, like last season was actually the highest rate of unassisted shots in terms of his makes that he's had in his whole career, which is kind of crazy. Like, and you consider the guys he had around him, with half season of KD, Booker, like they had guys. Mikal Bridges was really coming into his own offensively, but it wasn't a ball moving offense, and Chris kind of had to do a lot of it himself. So, I'm hoping that with the structure the Warriors have, they can get him into more of a natural flow, keep the ball moving around more, get him more catch and shoot shots, which he's always been great at. And he's still just crazy in the pick and roll. Last year, per Synergy Sports, he was 90th percentile in terms of creating shots for himself and others out of the pick and roll. I mean, that's just such impressive stuff. And even though he's a bit diminished defensively, like he's still really great at getting steals. He knows when to gamble, and I think the one thing that's going to be different from Jordan Poole is like Jordan Poole has so many physical tools to be good at defense. Like he's got a great wingspan. He's super athletic. It was just an effort and knowing what to do question. And those aren't questions you have to ask from Chris Paul. Like, yeah, he's small. He's not as fast as he used to be. He's not going to get super physical, but he's not going to make mistakes. He's going to be calling out rotations. He's going to be, shifting the defense out of the middle when he needs to be. So, like, having a smart defender that's not making avoidable mistakes is going to be so huge for this team because you can see the frustration from these guys when you play with someone who is just kind of not trying or like not really, checking man and ball when he's playing off the ball, guy who's getting hung up on screens all the time because he doesn't feel them coming or see them coming. And that kind of stuff, it wears on a team when you see that. So, if Chris is like doing all the right things and he's still getting beaten, his teammates are going to be much more fine with that than doing all the wrong things and getting beaten, and one thing too, I think he showed a lot of really great synergy with Dario Saric on the Suns. I think it's really big that they brought him in to be that sort of like steadying presence as a spacing four. He's such an unbelievable shooter. Like he takes so many threes above the break, which are really the indicator of like a great quality shooter. You don't have to just stick him in the corner, PJ Tucker style. Mm-hmm. Like he gets threes, he gets shots at the rim. Like that's his skill. He can pick and roll. We really saw it at FIBA. Like the guy, he can pass. Like he can really distribute. And one game in particular, watching Croatia against Turkey, like Alperen Şengün, obviously the big player on Turkey, and he would get kind of spaced out, like switched out onto Dario on the perimeter. And Dario would just go, all right, I'm going right to the rack. Like, I know I can beat you. I'm going to beat you. Try and stop it. So I think that's going to be really important, when you look at kind of the centers they've had, if JaMychal Green tried to take a guy off the dribble, you'd be like, oh, no. But like Dario, he knows his matchups and he knows how to beat him. And very similarly to Chris Paul, like he's not going to be your best defender on the floor, but he's not making big mistakes. And I think when you look at how this lineup is going to piece out, like maybe Trace Jackson Davis is the backup five. Maybe they bring in someone else, but Chris Paul, Dario, if that's your 1 and 4, between them, you got Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga, and we know those guys can bring clamps defensively.
Yep.
So you have these guys taking tough assignments, really like hanging out on the perimeter, like trying to take on these better matchups. And then you have two smart defenders playing off of them. And that's going to be so huge because, they're going to be in the right positions. They're not going to make huge mistakes. I really like how this bench unit is shaping out based on the offseason.
1,000%. And I'm glad you brought up the numbers because it really highlighted like Chris Paul's strengths really highlights where the Warriors' weaknesses were last year in terms of getting another guy that's able to get to the mid range and get you a shot. Like Jordan Poole, as you mentioned, like a lot of great physical tools, and it had a lot of obviously a great scorer. But when push came to shove, like to have a guy like Chris Paul where if nothing's working, motion offense, whatever, Steph's doing his stuff off the ball, it's just going to open everything up for Chris and Dario Saric, like you said. And, the word that's being thrown around with both these guys is that they're connectors within the lineup. And Chris with the offensive IQ and what the effort that he brings from defense on the defensive end. And Dario, like you mentioned, man, like he's a great passer, can shoot the ball, and like just knows where to be. And it really reminds for the Warriors, the biggest thing last season was that bench unit. We had so many discussions, debates about what the right combinations are, who should you plug and play in these situations. But now that you've got a bench of Chris Paul, Dario Saric, GP2, Kuminga, Moody, Trace Jackson Davis, Paul, like these guys, you have a very solidified like 5, 6, 7 guys off the bench where who your starting five are with Steph, Clay, Draymond, Looney, and Wiggins, and you have pieces around them that obviously they're gonna like Clay's gonna be playing, having some runs with the second unit. Draymond's probably gonna be in there at times. Looney. So you have guys that can step in, but you also have bench unit guys in the GP2s, the Kumingas, the Dario Saric, the Chris Pauls, who you're able to put together lineups for depending on the matchup and really give other teams different looks. Which I think the Warriors is kind of where their downfall was last season. It ended up becoming pretty one-dimensional, very Steph focused, which the pre-Steph or the pre-KD Warriors kind of is what this kind of reminds me of, where you had the Livingston, you had the Barbosa, you had the Maurice Spates, those guys who came in and were able to not only make an impact in their minutes, but they were connectors within these lineups on the offensive and defensive end. So I think for the Warriors to have made these moves in the offseason and really tailor this older line or this older core with guys that know how to play, I think it's just gonna, and I think we'll see that as the season kind of kicks off and gets running. That the Warriors have a legit team now. Like we're not talking about young guys, old guys, who's going to play, who needs more minutes, like who's stepping up, whatever it is. Who you guys are going to be able to step in and play their roles. And if they're able to do that, they're going to be one of the 5, 6 best teams in the NBA.
Yeah, that's what I like too, is, you really see the vision. And especially, obviously the trade of James Wiseman was kind of a precursor to this, but Jordan Poole going, Patrick Beverly going, Ryan Rollins going, like they're committed to saying Minga and Moody are our bets on the future. And I think those are the right bets. But if you're going to make them, you got to put the pieces around them that are going to help them get to that stage. And so now you have 2 much better, more reliable offensive players to plug in on the bench around them with Paul and Saric. I think if you're pairing a real 5 with them and Trace Jackson Davis, even though he's a rookie, like 40-year player, he's as polished as you're going to get out of a draft pick. And, they'll probably add other guys on 2 ways. But you see the real vision. Like if the bench unit is going to be Chris Paul running that 1-5 pick and roll, regardless of who the center is. You got Moody and Dario as your spacers above the wings. Kuminga's going to be in the corners. We know he's incredible at cutting, getting those lobs. And, if you make yourself open, Chris Paul is going to find you.
100%.
So I'm really a huge fan of how things are shaping up on that end because, last year it was so much of we're just going to kind of throw all these guys into the mix and see who pops.
Yep.
And some stuck and some didn't. But now what they're saying is we've identified the guys that we think can stick. And it's time to really build a team around that and, not be super reliant on guys coming out of nowhere. Like they're confident that they can get good minutes out of these two. And then if the rest of the rotation is reliable, talented veterans, then you've really got something cooking. And, one underrated part of the offseason is just keeping Draymond in the fold. Like
Big one.
there was so much drama. I think a team that had more, combustible personalities and like a work culture probably would have let him slip out of their grasp. But he knows what he has here. He knows what the Warriors have special. And even with all the stuff that went on, he was still willing to stay. Like, I don't even think we heard a peep or any like legitimate rumors of other teams that he was going to go to,
Yeah.
other than like, Lakers Instagram photoshops. Like, there was really like he was going to stay the whole time. And that's so impressive considering like you got the punch, you got the disappointment of last season, you got all the frustration, you got Bob Myers leaving. Like, so many things could have contributed. And he was just like, no, I'm here.
Back.
Like, I'm ready to rock. I'm out in the gym. I'm getting ready for next season. We're going for number 5.
100%. And like just to kind of cap this off, like the Warriors last season, and there were so many issues. Obviously, starting with the punch and Wiggins missing time, Steph having a couple injuries that he's battling. The not knowing who was going to play night to night, who was going to get minutes or not. We're still won 44 games and we're a 6th seed last season. So like with everything that went down, like the floor of this team, in my opinion, like as they're currently constructed, it's 50 wins. And after seeing just how open the West was last year, and obviously the Nuggets are the current champions and deservedly so are the kind of barometer of success in not only the Western Conference but the NBA. But like for the Warriors, it felt like they started to kind of find their groove with that through that King series, and obviously a hard fought win and just an electric Game 7 from Steph to kind of push him over the top. And even that Lakers series, like I think the Lakers were a bad matchup for the Warriors, just in general with the size with AD, the defense they had with Vanderbilt, LeBron obviously just all the problems he poses, but. The Warriors are right there. I mean, games 1 and 4 kind of slipped through their fingers. Those were kind of the 2 toss-up games, and even in Game 6, the closeout one, man, like they were honestly, it just felt like they kind of ran out of gas. I think I haven't seen Clay miss that many open shots in my life. Steph just having to just put the team on his back, and obviously like the dude's getting older as well. Like the legs kind of just gave out towards the end there, but like the Warriors were right there, like with the best in the West, even after such like so much turmoil going on that season that you just think that with everybody bought in on the same page, and that's what having veteran guys does. A guy like Chris Paul, who obviously has never won a ring, and that's his last kind of check mark in his NBA career resume. Like you have guys that are on the same page: Steph, Clay, Draymond, hungry for number 5. Guys like Looney, Wiggins, GP, who have been part of that championship run. Kuminga, Moody, who are taking that leap. There's a lot of better narratives kind of surrounding this team going into this season, and that it's all it takes is just they're like they were right there. Like obviously you didn't get it done, and you could the stuff that you can get into we've gotten into multiple times, but just surface level they were right there within the top Final 4 in the West. So like they've made the necessary improvements from a roster construction standpoint that we've been clamoring about for over a season. So for them now, it's just can you stay healthy and can everybody get on the same page? And I think with this crew that they have right now, it's going to be that much easier going into training camp. Just everybody bought in that. It's hard not to think that this team is poised to make that run for number 5 this coming season.
Yeah, no, I think they're looking very ready. And, just in terms of the contention, like as you said, Nuggets are the team to beat the West, but just in the league. Like they're so together. I think they're poised pretty well to, like as far as the championship team goes, like, no disrespect to Bruce Brown, but if Bruce Brown is like the best player
Yeah,
you lose in the offseason after a
going pretty
championship, like
well.
you're set up, you're doing pretty well. Jokic is just unbelievable, so rivaling best NBA summers up there with Steph.
He might be ahead just slightly, just with all those songboard dance videos, man. That looks like an absolute blast.
Oh yeah, dude, like he's horse cart racing during the day. He's
Love it.
going back to the cafes at night, just like partying with all his hometown folks. Like it seems like the life, man. But I agree with you. Like 50 wins is kind of the floor for this team because we've seen time and time again the impact that Chris Paul has on winning. And we already know how good this core is. And assuming there are no off-season punches in the face or like massive issues with like role and who's getting all this playing time and whatnot, like they can make this work. And they've obviously checked every box I think you need to check in terms of the pieces adding to this. So, now it kind of falls into the players' hands because I think that was so much of the issue last season is what can the uh what can the front office do differently? Um, the front office has done it. Like they've given them the tools they need, and now all the focus is just on the court. And when these guys get dialed in, man, like, whew, I'm I'm excited.
And there's a reason why we've been on our high horse for the last 10 years because they got one, two, three, four of them bad boys. Man, I like, and just to kind of cap this whole Warriors segment off, man, like to win number five and to legit if they're able to pull it off this year, and there's no, you have Steph, Clay, and Draymond. Clay obviously up for the extension, but you have these guys pretty much locked in for about a 3-4 year window. Bro, get greedy, man. Like you're in like the especially for Steph. And I know like obviously there's a lot of stuff around and a lot of guys want to see succeed, but for Steph Curry to get his fifth one and be in that pantheon of greatness, I think that you saw with like the Michael Jordans, the Kobe Bryants, the Shaqs, the LeBron's to that degree where you're entering that point of your career where you're able to be like Steph's already in those top 10 like greatest point guard ever discussions, and for him to just pad that resume for everything that he's done for this Warriors franchise since '09, and that promised all the Warriors fans we're going to figure this out, kind of that tweet that has famously become one of the greatest, kind of looking back at it's the coldest tweet I've ever seen, looking back at it. But like the chance to cement your legacy in the just pantheon of greatness in the NBA. I think that like this year is the Warriors are poised to do it, man. And it's gonna be fun to watch. I think this last season has been a roller coaster ride in terms of just emotions and the players and everything. You felt like they were always like on the cusp of getting over that hump, and they never really did. And this season just feels like a fresh start. Kind of hopefully channel that 22 energy on that kind of FU mentality to the league and proving it wrong to everybody else once again, man. So the quest for five is gonna be fun. Talking about the quest for five, man. We got a team in the Bay that's already had five. They're on the quest for six. And ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna try something. We're gonna try some new stuff on the Game Six Clay Pod this year. A lot of fun times in various sports, and I know I can speak for me, Charlie, and Matt. We're all fans of the Giants, the Niners, the Warriors, and are deeply rooted in the Bay Area sports culture. Love obviously watching the Giants and Niners, and a lot of fun stuff on those two teams too, man. And I'm sure for the listeners out here that are Warriors fans, hopefully you guys are getting geared up for football season and the Giants playoff run, man. But kind of just kicking it off, man. I just want to take a few minutes and kind of talk about those sports as well, starting with the Niners. Obviously, kind of an interesting parallel to the Warriors, where you've got a win now team, and then you've had a kind of development kind of track with a young player in Trey Lance, who obviously is now traded to the Cowboys. But the Niners are kind of in that same position, man, where you're in that win now, like this is the year to do it. Just give me your thoughts, man, on the Niners as they kind of start to kick off the season and what you've seen in this offseason. Obviously, a lot of talk with Trey and Sam Darnold and the whole Nick Bosa holdout, and kind of pushed to the side has been Niners are one of the two best teams in the NFC and have a real shot at getting over the hump this year, man. So, Chuck, can you talk me through your kind of Niners take and what you're kind of looking forward to seeing and what you've seen so far, and just kind of talk me through that, man.
Yeah, so I mean, getting all the Trey stuff out of the way, like I think just the way people have talked about it has seemed so ridiculous to me. I think there are very real reasons to say, hey, the front office got this one wrong. Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they got the pick wrong. Like I think the process of like let's add a developmental quarterback was probably a little flawed considering how win now this roster is. Um, but that's one of the things when you build a team, like the one thing that really sinks you is when you got to pay that quarterback, and then the whole rest of the roster suffers. So I think the process of like, hey, let's see if we can, catch lightning in a bottle with this rookie scale quarterback. That's sound process. And then I think where it went wrong is they kind of said like, okay, we're gonna keep Jimmy in there, kind of see where we can go. Like we know what we're getting out of him. And I think that was kind of the problem. Like we know Jimmy's not the quarterback; he's going to take you over the top. So maybe they should have just rolled with Trey and seen what happens, and then just put Jimmy back in. But second season they do that, and they just roll with it. Like they roll with Trey. Game one he's playing in the swamp, and then game two he's hurt, he's done, and he never plays for the Niners again. Like it's just it sucks, and there were a lot of parts of it that were out of their control. But people have just been so weird about it this offseason. Like, especially touching on the Darnold stuff. Like Sam Darnold last year for Carolina was like a decent starting quarterback when he got in the lineup. Mm-hmm. Like he didn't have a good first season with them. And they really didn't have much of a roster for him to work with, but like he played decent football, 4-2 as a starter. He had like career high passing metrics across the board. And, you really see it in the preseason. Like he's not the scared player that he was with the Jets. Like with the Jets,
he's got a cannon of an arm.
He's got a great arm, but like he's decisive. He can just take 3 steps. He can fire it into his first read. And that's really what the Niners are looking for because, they've set up this roster in a way where, not to take away from like what Brock Purdy has been able to do because I think he's fantastic. But like they're set up like, hey, we have Debo, Kittle, Ayuk. Like these guys are going to get open and they're going to run after the catch. Like they're going to be, breaking tackles. They're going to be getting out in the open field, going crazy. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey and the whole run game kind of speaks for itself. So, what they're looking for is just a guy who can be confident and make those decisions. And Darnold has looked like that guy. And, the thing that kind of pisses me off when we're talking about him is I see people like tossing out the stats for when he played for the Jets. And they're like, oh, this dude threw like 50 touchdowns with 50 interceptions. And I'm like, yeah, it's the Jets. Like, they gave him no weapons. He didn't have an offensive line. Like he was running for his life. And yeah, like he played some pretty bad football, but it takes a special player to like actually overcome those circumstances.
100%.
And what we've seen now is he's just a solid, serviceable quarterback. So like if you have these concerns with Brock over injuries, I'm pretty confident that Darnold could step in and they wouldn't have a huge drop off. And that being said, like Brock looks so good. Like he is so incredible at like the speed he reads the defense. He doesn't have the biggest arm, but like he's really good at throwing with anticipation. Like he's gonna throw guys open instead of throwing it to where they are, which I think was kind of a main problem with Trey. Like he just, especially when you saw it in the preseason, like he'd have open guys and he's pump faking and he's holding onto the ball and he's getting sacked. So, I think they made the right moves because Brock's the starter. There's no question about it. I think he can be at least like a top half quarterback in the league. And if he goes down again, like you feel, you're not going to feel great with Darnold as the quarterback, but he's better than most of the backups out there. So, they got to feel really good about what's going on in the quarterback room, even with Trey heading out the door.
1,000%. And I think I'm glad you brought up the word process because I think that's something that people and honestly, man, like I thought Warriors Twitter was toxic. I don't think I've met a more toxic Twitter fan base than the 49ers.
Oh my God.
But like it really begs the question, like you mentioned, man, like they made a mistake. Like you can call it spade. I personally, I don't think Trey Lance is a bust yet. I think the pick was a bust. All the assets that you made to trading through first round picks and seeing what those ended up becoming. Obviously like the move was a bust. And you can call it spade a spade. But the kind of hit pieces that you see about Trey. Like the kid started 4 games. He had a broken finger in 2 of them. Won a game against the Texans, 21 when Jimmy got hurt. Going into that Rams game, they had to win to make the playoffs. And like you say, he played in a swamp and then shattered his ankle in like the first quarter of his 4th start. So we didn't really get to see the Trey Lance era even kind of start, which is disappointing. I mean, it was disheartening in terms of what you gave up. But this is the same team that drafted George Kittle, drafted Fred Warner, drafted Nick Bosa, have developed this team. And like you said, man, like they struck gold with Brock Purdy in terms of getting a guy who is paid $870,000 this year, the last pick in the draft. So the plan is still in motion. Your plan was to win with this team on a rookie contract, rookie quarterback deal, and they're still able to do that. In fact, they bought an extra year because Purdy was obviously 1 year after Trey, so they have that extra year. But for the Niners, man, I think what's been gotten lost in all the talk about the backup quarterback, and like obviously Nick Bosa not yet signed, but it seems like a deal should be imminent. Pay the man. He's the best defensive player you have, and obviously defensive player of the year, all that stuff. But Niners are there, man. This is the year, and I say this jokingly, like I've never had my heart broken by a girl. It's always been the San Francisco 49ers. Looking back from 2011, 2012, 2013, the Harbaugh era, and then 19, 21, and then obviously last year you felt like you didn't really have a chance. And that's kind of the fun part you're in with Brock Purdy at this point, where he's the guy. And Kyle's come out and said it. And at a certain point, man, you got to trust Kyle Shanahan. Like I see people on Twitter calling for his head because he missed on the Trey pick. I see people on Twitter calling him just a fraud because he didn't get the quarterback right. And for all intents and purposes, man, he's worked with C.J. Beathard, Nick Mullins, Brian Hoyer, Jimmy Garoppolo, who obviously I always have love for Jimmy. I mean, I remember the 2017, the 1-10 season, came in and kind of started that kind of turnaround of the franchise, and obviously it didn't end up, and we didn't get over the hump with Jimmy, but got damn close. And so with Brock, you see elements of Jimmy where he's making those decisive reads, and he's got that, like you said, he's the ball's getting out quick, he's making those reads fast. But with Brock, man, the ability to kind of just scramble a little bit, make plays with his feet, is very pre-ACL Jimmy, which I think was the best version we saw until he obviously tore it in 2018, I think. So you're in such a fun spot. Like you got the Eagles, who are obviously the best in the West, or the best in the NFC at this point. But the Niners, man, like it still felt like if they had a chance last year in that NFC Championship game, you had to like your chances, man, and to go up, you're gonna have to go up against a Mahomes, a Burrow that's gonna come out of the AFC. There's just so much talent that the Niners have in terms of, like you said, Kittle, Bosa, or Armstead on the D line, like Warner. So there's just such good. Like you trust the guys that you're running with, man. So this Niners season coming up, man. Week 1, September 10th in Pittsburgh. It feels like this is the year they got to get it done though. Like this, you can't be more battle tested than the Niners are at this point. And so if they're able to stay healthy and just I think getting the 1 seed is a huge prerogative for this team. I think that we've kind of seen them either get injured deep in these runs or kind of run out of gas like they did in 21 against the Rams. Again, a game they probably should have won. But to get that 1 seed, we've seen the Niners kind of get off these slow starts, start 3-4, 3-5, and kind of work their way into that midseason form. And so if they're able to come out hot and really from the jump and really secure this, I don't see why they can't bring number 6 back to the Bay this year, man. It's gonna be a fun time, a fun season. And just to cap it off, man, Chuck, we got a third team. Obviously, the Bay Area sports are killing it right now. The Giants, maybe a year sooner than people thought, but incredible season. I mean, there's ups and downs, obviously, with players and who they signed, who they didn't sign, whatever it is. But man, you can't tell me that this team is not a breath of fresh air with so many young guys and Casey Schmidt, Patrick Bailey, Luis Matos. You've seen Helio Ramos out here, man. Like the Giants are in there. I think they're, after today, they lost to the Reds today, but they're I think either half a game out or still in that 3rd seed, depending on what happened to the D-backs tonight. But just talk me real quick through the Giants, man. Like it's been a fun. Baseball's been back in the MLB or in the Bay Area, and This has kind of been the year of was 2021 a fluke or not? Obviously 107 wins. You had Posey, you had Crawford in his tail end of his prime, and that Kapler Farhan era. And I personally think that making the playoffs this year is a huge not a must for the team, but for the Kapler and Farhan era, because there's a lot of talk about the type of baseball they play with, the platooning, the analytics, and the Moneyball-esque kind of stuff that they're playing with. And to make the playoffs with this team, it feels like they're a year away from being like as good, like these young guys developing. You're seeing these guys all getting picked up from AAA. If you're able to sign a guy like Shohei, who's obviously coming on in the market, it feels like if the Giants can kind of make this push in this last kind of month of the regular season, that they're really teeing themselves up for a really solid offseason. And if you're, and we've seen the Giants play in September and October, man. Or if you get them in a series, and that's where the analytics and the platooning can really work. So just give me a quick takeaways on the Giants, man. I know you've been doing a lot of writing too for the about the Giants, and so just kind of give me your thoughts on the orange and black this season.
Yeah, there's been a lot of ups and downs. Like they've had some just real rough stretches where they can't score a run. For some reason, like they turn into a little league team whenever the
That
bases
Wilmer
are
Flores,
loaded.
man. Except Wilmer. Wilmer's been that dog.
Except Wilmer, dude. Wilmer is crushing it. Like that. That is one of the craziest things. Wilmer's sitting here. I think he's at like batting 305.
I think
He's
so.
carried the offense at stretches, which is just such a cool thing, man. But like they do such a good job, and Farhan, I think he just gets way too much crap for the free agents because, like as quiet as it's kept, like people crap so much on like not signing Correa.
It's a
Guess who
great
has
move.
not had a good
Great
guess who
move.
has not had a good season? Carlos Correa.
Yeah.
Like,
Even Aaron
they
Judge to
were
that degree, man. He hasn't had the best year, especially if you're paying him all that money. Like Arson Judge is not
yeah,
not mad about the misses this offseason.
Arson Judge. No, but
Reverend
yeah,
Judge.
uh he he's still great. Like he's still an amazing player, but like he's missed a lot of time. He hasn't been like that consistent presence in the lineup. And I think what they did that was really smart is, they were willing to go all in on Judge. And like if they still had Judge playing on this team, like they would be a better team for sure. And but like there's been so many other good things. Like they are just making small acquisitions on the margins that have been really good. Like JD Davis has been a really incredible hitter. He can hit against righties and lefties, which has been really important. All the youth that they've called up has been just crazy. One thing that stood out to me the most a couple of days ago, obviously Kyle Harrison just absolutely dealing. Um, 11 Ks, 2 walks, like just shutting them down.
A big time series,
Like
man. They had to win this series against the Reds, and they did that.
yeah, it was big time. But the play that stood out to me the most. So Harrison gives up a couple base runners. He gets that walk. He gets pulled. Standing ovation. Like crowd's loving it. Um, they bring in Ryan Walker, another rookie who's been amazing. He's got like a 2.4 ERA through 50 innings. He's sinker slider guy, just looking so unhittable at times. And um, so you pull the rookie starter, you bring in the rookie reliever, and then immediately like gives up a base hit to right field. Luis Matos, another rookie, throws 100-mile-an-hour missile to the plate to cut down the runner,
To
like
another rookie,
save the
Patrick Bailey.
to another rookie. Exactly. So you just got like all these young guys making plays. I, especially in all my chats and stuff where we talk about baseball, I have not been able to shut up about how good Patrick Bailey is.
Man.
Like
Gold
he's
glove
just
that man.
walked onto the field and just been like the best defensive catcher in baseball. Like, and it's honestly not even close. Like he's top 3 in pitch framing. He's throwing guys out as good as anyone else can. He recorded the fastest pop time, like glove
It
to
won
throw.
the game with that walk-off pickoff.
Yeah, walk off, pick off. Like he is just unbelievably smart. He's so fast. Like he just looks as ready as to get from the catcher position, and he's still holding his own offensively. But like switch hitter. He can hit for power. Like we've seen him just have such good technique, with working the count. He's able to drop the bat head and just slap singles when he has to. Like they have put so much good stuff together. And then when you mix that with the veterans that are really performing, like they've had disappointments, like Sean Manaea, Ross Stripling, like all these other guys haven't really panned out.
Yeah,
But
dude.
like we said, Wilmer Flores has been their best hitter all season. That's crazy. Alex Cobb damn near threw a no hitter last night. Just looked absolutely untouchable.
Yeah.
And he's been great all season. Like all-star caliber guy. He's been their ace at times. When Webb has had some kind of like ups and downs, but like when Cobb is going, he's incredible. Like man, just the way they've cobbled this together is so impressive. And like you said, they haven't made the big swings, but they're still primed to do it. Like you don't have any big contracts that are gonna limit you going after the Shoheis of the world next offseason. And if I'm a big time player like Shohei, I'm in the middle of my prime, I'm ready to win. I'm looking at this team that's like fighting for the playoffs, just filled with youth. Like
Exactly.
they just graduated Harrison. He looks like he's going to be a stud. Like Patrick Bailey should be in the lineup for the next 10 years. Matos is looking good. Like Casey Schmidt had his struggles with the bat, but like he's so good defensively.
It's insane.
I thought that he's number 2 in baseball this season, and like his average speed on his throws, he throws like 95 miles an hour on his infield assists. Number 1 being Ellie, of course, because Ellie is a freak of nature. But like, if there's a guy you want to be number 2 behind, it's probably Ellie. So like can't be mad about that.
Let's not forget the best closer in baseball, man, Camilo Doval. Like the Giants.
Oh my God.
Like you said, and it's kind of like just kind of think like bringing all the 3 sports together. Like we've kind of been clamoring for like some of these youth to pan out. Obviously the Wisemans, the Pools, the Treys, and like obviously Purdy is looking like he might be one of the to blossom for the Niners. But like the Giants just having such a homegrown young team, and I think that's kind of how it was in the 2010s, man, when Buster, Craw, Brandon Bell, all those guys started kind of coming up, and obviously they had a lot of studs around them in terms of guys that have been around the Lincecums, the Canes, and the pitching staffs was nice. But that Giants team's kind of built similar, man. Great bullpen, lineups getting there in terms of how they're winning these games. But if you had told us that the Giants would be right there in wild card contention going into the final month of the season, I think every single fan would have been stoked about the prospect of how the season's unfolded. So we've had some fun times, man. Niners football, Giants baseball coming up on a postseason run, hopefully, and obviously the Warriors, man. They're primed for number 5. So we've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about this summer, this year. We love this, guys. We love doing the multi-sport stuff. We could probably start our another podcast, but for Niners and Giants talk too. But we've got this one. We're obviously going to do Warrior stuff all the time. But as this kind of starts to grow as well this season, would love to kind of get your guys' takes too, man. Like kind of hear everybody's thoughts. I know a lot of you guys must be fans of the other 2 teams as well. So if you guys want to hear our thoughts, and we're probably still going to keep doing them. So. Even if you don't, man, shit. we'll still.
And hey, too out of here, man. Like, shout out to Austin Slater, dude. That was
what a catch.
Like you really talk about like one of the craziest things too is like if there was just one hit on the board, I don't think he's making that play. He's pulling up like it's a 6-0 ball game at that point. Like you're not too worried about like let's sell out for every hit. But he knows no hitter on the line, like sinking line drive center field.
There's those moments.
Dude, just hucking his body on the line. Like how easily could he have like, landed on his wrist and just like screwed shit up? Like,
yeah, it would be bad.
And dude, and then he just catches it like half an inch off the ground. Like I couldn't even when I saw it, I'm standing up and yelling it.
I thought it dropped for sure. I was like, no way.
I did too. I was like, I'm standing up in my apartment, fucking yelling. Like, shout out to my neighbors. I'm sure they love that. But like, I'm just like, oh my God, there's no way. I'm like, there's no way that that ball didn't touch grass. And he
Gregor
got it.
Blanco,
Like,
shout out Gregor Blanco for like the greatest catch I've ever seen in person, or like on TV. But Austin Slater, man, that was a fun time, and the Giants are hitting this stretch run right now where it's go time. They're right there, man, and so as these races start to unfold and we get the football season kicked off, man, Chuck, I'm excited to see all the content we're going to be able to put out, just talking about this, and Matt, we'll get Matt on the obviously on the next one, and get some of his thoughts and takeaways. But Chuckster, before we get out of here, it's been a fun welcome back pod, man. Always a pleasure hopping on, chopping it up. Anything you got to shout out, man? Anything coming out in the cuts coming out soon?
yeah, so had a couple off-season pieces. I had one on trying to track some comparisons for Jonathan Kenney's shooting element. That was a really fun article to work through. Did a real deep dive on Moses Moody on the defensive end. So many improvements he's made. It's just kind of unbelievable how he turned things around there. So that was a really fun one to dig into. Currently working on a little piece on our man Kevon Looney. I got that soon, so hopefully be able to get that out
Oh,
next week
baby.
or so. As always, you can check all my workout on theswishtheory.com. Love all my guys over there. That's where I get all my stuff out. Yeah, man, just cranking the film as always.
Love that. As always, guys, follow Chuck at Claytheus11, at Matt J. Cardoza for our boy Matt. Follow me at Gautam Rottenham NBA. Might have to change that to just Gotham Rottenham Sports now. But other than that, guys, and keep following us on Games Clay, man. It's gonna be a fun year. This big things coming. We got a lot of stuff planned here at Games Clay. Fourth year doing this, fourth season coming up. So we're making the jump. Excited to see guests, whatever we're able to do with this podcast, man. It's always been a fun time with these boys. But till the next episode, guys. Peace.